Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 Mods Weekly, the show where we recap some of the really interesting mods to come out during the week. And we have a nice variety of mods this time around with some different weapon mods, Pip-Boy replacers, and even some cool retextures. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the first mod, and that's going to be Dear Pip-Boy by Alibaba, and that is going to add a new Pip-Boy replacer. But this is not going to be your ordinary Pip-Boy replacer, as this one has no technology in it whatsoever. It is not replacing it with some sort of tablet or other device. Rather, this is a journal, an actual physical journal that you turn the pages on and write in with a pencil. Well, sort of at least. The model itself is going to be a physical journal, and as you pour through the different categories in the Pip-Boy, you will flip over through the pages, though it's still going to have a digital display, as something like an actual written down Pip-Boy is going to be a bit impossible. At least I think so, in regards to Bethesda's engine. But even with that in mind, this is a pretty cool and pretty advanced mod, and I gotta say it's really nice. But with something that does change out the Pip-Boy as drastically as this one does, there are some bugs and weird quirks to be expected. First of which is the fact that since this is not a screen, it actually does interact with light in a pretty big way. So depending on which direction you're facing and where the sun is at that particular time, the screen may be harder or easier to see. So it's best to use this thing while looking directly at the sun so that you actually have a nice bit of shade on the part you're looking at, which is typically not how you'd want to do that in real life, but that's kind of how it works in game. Additionally, another strange little quirk with this one is whenever you try to insert a holotape, which, spoiler alert, journals are not intended to do, the animation is a bit funky. And I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but the page sort of starts to rip out. I don't know if it's like oh, we're ripping out the page and putting in a new one. That's kind of what we're doing with the holotape, or if it's just a bug or an oversight. Not entirely sure, but regardless, this is still a very cool Pip-Boy replacer. As to be expected with this mod, since it does completely replace the Pip-Boy, it will also replace it in third person, so you can wear armors without that Pip-Boy getting in the way. So if you're looking for a Pip-Boy replacer regardless, and you want something that's not so technologically advanced, this might be a good option for your load order. Moving on over to the next mod, we have the SKS, a rusted Chinese hunting carbine by PrecisionTacos. This mod's going to add a wonderful new lore-friendly rifle into the game, one that I've been wanting in Fallout 4 for a very long time, and I know many of you have as well. We actually did a full breakdown of this weapon earlier during the week on the channel, so if you want to get every single detail, you can go check that out. Otherwise, we'll give a brief overview here for those of you who haven't seen it. This is going to add a Chinese version of the SKS, and it's going to have washed up on the shore of Nordhagen Beach in a nice shipping container. So rather than being added to the level list, this weapon actually has one static spawn, but it is a shipping crate full of them. Now, a lot of these SKSs are actually ruined, and whenever you go and find them, they will be non-functional. But if you dig through them, there will be a handful of functional ones that you can take over to a weapons workbench to repair and make better. And that means that you have a few that you can give out to different settlers and companions as well, which is pretty neat. This mod is going to come complete with a beautiful custom model and texture, as well as custom animations that look absolutely wonderful. Not to mention, this one actually comes with multiple custom animations depending on which kind of magazine you have. There are detachable magazines available as modifications at the weapons workbench, or you can use the standard internal magazine that you will load from the top with a nice little clip of bullets. This weapon is also heavily modifiable at the weapons workbench. You can do a lot of crazy things to this, including adding snub barrels and sawn-off stocks, and even some really cursed 10mm rechambers, something that was never to be expected for the SKS, but you can do it with this mod. And if you're brave enough or stupid enough, you can even convert this thing to be full auto, though it's not exactly recommended. Altogether, though, this is going to add a really nice complete rifle package, one that I think fits really well into the game, especially with how it was integrated in this mod. This is definitely one that's really neat and worth picking up, especially for any of you who are a big fan of the SKS. If you want to try it out for yourself, it will be linked down in the description below, along with any of the other mods featured in this video. Up next, we have a pretty interesting remesh mod, and that's going to be the Burning Fusion Core by elzee. Now, typically a mod like this wouldn't be covered in a video as they're pretty self-explanatory, but this one is a bit more interesting. This one is going to completely remodel the vanilla game Fusion Cores to have a completely new style and aesthetic with a custom model and texture that are completely different from Fallout. But what's really neat about this remodel is anything that uses fusion cores will have this remesh applied to it, that being power armor, Gatling lasers, any weapons that use fusion cores as some sort of magazine has this new model instead. So it is a pretty expansive remesh. So that means in all of these things that have animations, this new model will be used instead. So when you jam a fusion core into the back of power armor, it's going to have a completely new model. And that's even going to change the look of some of these weapons and armors. Power armor will look different now since it'll have the new fusion core sticking out of the back as opposed to the old one. Same goes for Gatling lasers, etc. It's a pretty simple mod, but it does have a pretty big impact on the aesthetic of a lot of items in the game, and that's what makes this one really, really neat. I'm not sure what the inspiration for the new model is, but it does look pretty cool, and it's something I could see being used in a modern sort of tactical load order. Definitely not something that's trying to look like Fallout, though. Even if this mod's not your style, it still is a really, really neat one, and it's nice to have options out there for those of you who do want to change things up a bit. So go ahead and try this one out if you're looking for a new fusion core replacer. We don't really have anything else like this right now, so this one is pretty neat. Up next, though, we have a brand new weapon pack coming from the Capital Wasteland team, and that's going to be the classic Unarmed pack by TheFriedturkey and HcGxGrill. This is going to add in a ton of unarmed melee weapons from Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3. And in case you're unaware, unarmed just means weapons that are used on your fists rather than being held in your hands. That'll be things like power fists and ballistic fists, bladed gauntlets, stuff like that. This mod is going to add a total of 10 brand new weapons from Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, 5 of which are going to be unique variants of the weapons. All of the regular versions can be found out in the world as they are added to the leveled list, and the 5 uniques can be purchased from different vendors. The list of weapons are going to be as follows. The standard weapons include the Power Fist, the Ballistic Fist, the Industrial Hand, the Mantis Gauntlet, and the Saturnite Fist, and the uniques will include the Grease Lightning, Fisto, the Superheated Saturnite Fist, the Embrace of the Mantis King, and the Two-Step Goodbye. And all of these models do look absolutely excellent. I especially enjoy the classic style of the Power Fist. The new model of the Power Fist included in Fallout 4's vanilla game is pretty neat, but I definitely prefer the classic one a lot more for Fallout. And this mod is pretty nice in that it does add a lot of variety into the game, though there are a couple of different unarmed weapons that I do wish were included, things like the classic Deathclaw Gauntlet, and even the Bladed Gauntlet from Fallout New Vegas, which was really just a glove surrounded by a bunch of knives, but it was still pretty neat and pretty interesting. Even without those, though, this is definitely a mod that I'd recommend picking up, as this is going to heavily change up the leveled lists of Fallout 4 by adding a bunch of new unarmed weapons that you could encounter. So whenever you run into a gunner who may have had a Power Fist, he may have one of these new weapons instead. Especially watch out for those Ballistic Fists, as those things are pretty powerful. Definitely going to be a mod worth picking up if you're looking for more classic weapons. You already know this if you've been checking out the roadmap for the Capital Wasteland project. They've had a bunch of classic weapons come out already, and there's only going to be more. So go ahead and grab this one. It's available for both PC and Xbox if you want to add even more classic Fallout weapons into your game. And then finally, to wrap up today's video, we have another weapon pack, not a single weapon, but an entire pack of them, and that's going to be the Heavy Weapons pack by Pig. This is another one that we covered not too long ago on the channel. Again, if you want all the details, you can go and check it out, but for those of you who haven't seen it, this is going to add 5 new heavy weapons into Fallout 4. Now, some of these weapons may not be heavy in the traditional sense, in that it's a big, large, actually heavy weapon, but rather some of them just have a pretty high caliber, and so they fit into this category. All of these weapons are going to use a lot of vanilla assets and definitely vanilla animations, though there are a couple of modded assets here and there, but what you're really going to get is a lot of customizability and some pretty unique features with this mod, and all of these weapons are added to the leveled list and will spawn around level 16, except for one of them which will spawn at level 20. The weapons included in this pack are as follows. You have the Makeshift Combat MG, which is going to be a handmade, heavily adapted combat rifle that is now chambered in 5mm and is a proper machine gun. You have the Scrap Autocannon, which is a large 50 caliber minigun alternative. This is the one that's going to spawn at level 20, as it is a pretty powerful weapon. You have the Pneumatic Grenade Launcher, which is an air-powered grenade launcher that will fire out baseball grenades. You have the Wasteland Flamethrower, my favorite weapon in this pack, which is going to be a nice handheld flamer alternative. And then you have the Wrist Breaker, which is only going to be a little pistol, but it's chambered in 50 caliber. Not 50 AE either, it's full-on 50 BMG, a very large round in a very small package. Also included in this mod are a handful of uniques. I won't go through them all as there are a ton of them, but if you want to know, go ahead and check out the full breakdown on my channel so you can see every single unique and what they have to offer. Again, having all of these weapons added to the level list really helps you spice up the variety of your game and give the enemy some powerful weapons to shoot back at you with, so now you're not the only overpowered person running around the Commonwealth. All of these weapons are really unique and really cool and have a lot of charm, especially that Wasteland Flamethrower. I really like that thing. I'm never going to stop talking about it. If you're familiar with Pig's work, you know that all of his weapons are super lore friendly, and this one is no different, and you get a bunch of weapons in this pack, so there's really no reason not to pick this thing up. Again, if you want to try any of the mods out that were featured in this video, they will all be linked down in the description below, along with Xbox links if there are any available. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating, subscribe if you haven't already for more videos just like this, stay tuned for next week for another Mods Weekly, and of course, big shout out to all my patrons for making videos like this possible. You guys are awesome. If you're at all interested in the Patreon and you want to help support the channel, we do offer special perks to those who join, including things like early access to my mods, as well as special Discord roles, and a couple of other neat features. So check it out if you think it's something you might enjoy. Otherwise, it's completely optional. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Peace!